I feel like every time we talk or every time we meet, I'm like, how can I incorporate something from Casey's life into mine? And we've been doing it. We picked up a professional nanny, life changed.
That's compliments to my wife. She's the one who initiated that. But it makes your life, when you have 2 little kids and both you and your wife work, having good child care is life-changing. Yeah,
well, especially because during the day while we go to work, it's like whoever is in that position, you want them to be good because they're with your kids, unless it's like summer, more than you. And so you're like, who can be better at this job that I signed up for?
And when you have a sitter who doesn't have your complete confidence when you're trying to work,
right?
It's all you're thinking about.
Well, and it's also because it is hard. So the babysitter we had before, fantastic. But it's like she wants to have a career in entertainment, and she like went to school to be a DP.
Trouble.
And like you're in trouble.
You are her second priority.
Yes.
Your children are her second priority.
Right. I mean, and she was lovely, but you definitely want to have someone that like that's their
career.
Yeah. And
babysitter talk with Casey and Phil.
Yeah. This is actually
child care.
I'm actually just trying to sneak in and take your wife's spot on couples therapy.
Yeah, well,
that's what this is.
You got it, Phil. You got it. No, a little context on that.
Sure.
If you're gonna, before you just shame me and my indulgent lifestyle, which it's not completely undeserved.
Wait, can I say this? Wait, before he says this, I gotta say, we'll see. One of the first conversations I had with you, do you remember what you talked about with the way that you spend your day, like the things that you spend time on and what you won't spend time on? You had this like 8-minute diatribe about how you don't do dishes.
Oh, this is in New York City.
Yeah. This is
New York City. I remember that conversation.
You might have even included some of this in a show. I
still subscribe to that. The trouble is, like, if not said correctly, it's like a really privileged monologue to deliver, but it does make sense.
It's a super privileged, seemingly like 1%-y sort of thing, but from a creative standpoint, the argument is essentially spend your time on what you're good at and what gives you the biggest return. Right. So Casey said like he doesn't do laundry and he doesn't do dishes. The only time I want to do dishes, and this is changing because my new nanny likes to do dishes, and
no one likes
I realize,
to do dishes,
but there's something. Well, but you also get something out of some of your videos where there's a difference in creating a video, which is going to be seen by hundreds of thousands, millions of people, and just like genuinely crafting something in the world or actually having an impact on something. Because I'm not a manly man or skilled in any way, is dishes, right? It was dirty. I used my fucking hands. I got to not think about the news cycle. It was great, right? So I get a little return on that, but your whole thing was, why do that if I can?
The nut of it is just sort of like you and I right now, we're sitting here, we're having a conversation that we're both totally focused on.
Yeah.
But you have 3 people right now that are making sure we sound great, the lighting's correct, the cameras are working. If we had to bifurcate our focus and be focusing on that, this conversation would suffer. But this conversation is the bread and butter of what you create. This is the most valuable thing you've got. So for me, like, especially when I was daily vlogging, which is when we had that conversation, at that point in my life, like, my goal was to remove everything that I was responsible for professionally that wasn't creating videos.
Sure.
Because creating videos was the only thing that only I could do. So like if I would catch myself like at my house in the morning spending 2 hours cleaning, it's like, okay, this is 2 hours cleaning, which has to happen, but it means 2 hours of not doing the one thing that I can do. And then as the vlog started to take off and you start to realize like, oh shit, this is also making money. Like this is my new income. It's like, okay, how much is it costing me to spend half my day cleaning the house, organizing my office, answering phone calls, scheduling meetings? Like it's costing me money to do that. So like as the vlog started to take off, like 2015, 2016 is when I built a much bigger infrastructure around myself, professionally and personally, so I could focus on what I do. And like we started this conversation talking about like childcare. That was when Candace and I first were like, we can't do this with just us and babysitters. We need to hire a full-timer so we can both get back to focusing on work. But I definitely like, when I was doing those 21-hour days for 800 days in a row doing the daily vlog, I took it to such an extreme.
Yeah, well, I know that when you're talking about ROI and then when we were having a conversation, and I said, like, why you can find someone. Well, I think, and I know you'll disagree, you'll be able to find, and the audience is going to disagree, but you're going to be able to find someone, I think, that can get to a 90% level of where you do on editing. And I know that was one thing that you were like, I'm never going to fucking let someone do that. But it's also, I imagine, because you get joy out of it. Like it's you kind of flexing a muscle that you've developed over the past, 20 years.
I mean, editing's unique for me in the scope of the things that I do. It's that there are definitely way better editors out there than me. I think of like the Shawn Mendes documentary that I made. I'm a strong editor, but I brought in an editor that was better than me at telling a story like that. But
you feel like you felt comfortable with that because it was less personal?
Well, I felt comfortable with that because the editor and I, his name was Zach and I were trying to tell a story that we both knew. And I felt like his ability to craft that story was better than my ability to craft that story. The place where I get a little bit rigid on editing is when it was literally my daily vlog. And that's because like the daily vlog was such a unique part of filmmaking, wherein like I would capture all day long, having some semblance of an idea of what the story was. What am I saying to camera? Does that fit in with what I said to camera before? Is this going to work if I put all this together? But ultimately I was finding the story in the edit. So to relinquish the edit to someone else is not like editing like, the Phil DeFranco show, where maybe you do 10 takes and you're trusting somebody to pick the right take. But ultimately, like I used to say, I was writing the movie, I was writing the vlog, I was writing that 10-minute story in the edit. So to relinquish that responsibility was to give up the writing of my day, of my life to someone else. And that's why that was protected. But some of my biggest movies like Make It Count, Do What You Can't, both those movies were edited by someone else. Because that was a story that was, I was sort of the backdrop for it. It was much bigger than me. It's a story about like going for it in life, and another story about like focusing on your passion. Like that's a universal story. So someone else could tell that better than me.
Sure.